Senator Adam Schiff, Democrat of California, is on the Judiciary Committee. As a House member, he was lead impeachment manager in Trump's first impeachment trial. He joins me now. Senator, it was a little unclear when this was first reported if this was true or not. I guess it's subsequently been confirmed. Oh, it's a serious thing to open a criminal investigation. What's your response to this?
Well, sadly, I think we're going to see a lot more of this. We're going to see the leaking, the announcement of criminal investigations against the president's perceived political enemies. Here, the president has always tried to contest the conclusion of the intelligence community back in 2016 that Russia was affirmatively trying to harm the Clinton campaign, and by doing so, help the Trump campaign. He obviously hates that conclusion, but it was a pretty consensus conclusion of the intelligence community. After all, the Russians were hacking Hillary's emails and leaking them. They were pushing out social media content harmful to Hillary Clinton, as well as stuff that was just plain divisive on the issue of immigration, guns, and other things. But he's trying to contest that Russia helped his campaign by hurting Hillary Clinton, and he is also trying to go after his enemies. So I think, as Brennan was alluding, it doesn't really matter whether they're serious about this investigation. All that matters is they can announce it. They can placate the MAGA base by doing so. Now, they may very well go beyond that. We've seen them move to initiate investigations without any evidence, and there's really no telling how far this administration will go.
I should note, of course, that John Brennan is an MSNBC contributor here at the network. I want to ask about another revelation today about sort of the use of the federal government directed at James Comey. This is New York Times reporting today. After the former FBI director put a picture on Instagram of seashells arranged to say 8647, law enforcement tailed his car and tracked his cell phone, steps usually reserved for serious threats. 86 obviously means to get rid of. They made a big to-do about it as if he was calling for the president to be killed, which I think is implausible and somewhat absurd. What do you think about the Secret Service tailing Mr. Comey?
Well, it shows the lengths that they're going to go to, once again, to go after the political enemies of the president. And here, you know, we have this, I think, really nefarious combination of the Justice Department with its weaponization working group to weaponize that department against enemies of the president. We have the FBI under Kash Patel more than willing to use extreme measures that are reported here against James Comey. And with respect to what you asked me about just a moment ago, you have Ratcliffe, the head of the CIA, willing to politicize his office to push out discredited kind of claims as a way of doing the president's bidding. And the problem is we can't now rely on what the leaders of the intelligence community have to say. Tulsi Gabbard's staff was already involved in trying to push the intelligence community to amend its reporting on Nicaragua because it would embarrass the president or interfere with his immigration policy. And if you can't now trust the leaders of the intelligence community, you certainly can't trust Kash Patel at the FBI or the likes of Ed Martin or Pam Bondi at the Justice Department, then how much confidence can Americans have in the rule of law or in our intelligence agency's ability to focus on the job they should have, which is keeping us safe?
You know, there's so much triage to happen here about the rule of law, but I wonder if you've given any thought about what comes after this or what would have to come after this. I mean, one thing I think about is they seem to think that they could do lots of things that if you thought the other side would do it to you, you might stop yourself from doing. I mean, you know, this is sort of basic game theory model. That they don't seem to have that fear, like we're never going to be out of power again. And I wonder how you think about, there has to be, to me, some new order that comes after this, if we manage to survive it.
Well, there does. You know, I think we have to really try to get back to having a intelligence community, a Justice Department, an FBI that is ruthlessly nonpartisan. And we have to have the kind of leadership that can establish that and be credible about it. But you're right. I mean, their modus operandi, and it comes from the top, the fish rots from the head, is Donald Trump, whose real view, his life view is, yes, he's crooked, and yes, he's a liar, but everyone is crooked, everyone is a liar, everybody does it. It's just that he's the crook and the liar of the GOP. And
Right.
that's what distinguishes him. So I do think that Trump and others like Kash Patel, they think of others as they would do themselves. And they can't imagine someone actually
Yes.
operating differently. But in the future, we're going to have to restore, and it'll be hard work and laborious, both the rule of law, but also the public's trust in the rule of law.